chance to get in. Give me 1 second. What's up, Mike? What's going on, brother? Give me a minute. I'm going to get into it in a little bit. Just trying to wait for a few people to get in. Yeah, I'm going to get into it a little bit. A couple of people are trying to figure out how to get to my page. So, give me a second. Hello, Chris. What's up, Chris? For real? Yeah, give me a minute. I'm going to get into it a little bit. A few people are trying to figure out how to get to my page. So just give me a second. Yeah, give me a second, people, because a few people trying to get in and they trying to figure out how to get in my page. So just give me a second. But just for y'all know, today's video is going to be about why the Second Amendment is so important and why, as we as a people, preferably black people, but everybody for real, why being able to keep and bear arms is so important. Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm just trying to send it to somebody so they have it. And why the Second Amendment is so important. Very important. And I'm going to give people a few minutes, but after about a good 5 minutes, I'm going to really get into it. So just hang tight with me. But I appreciate everybody that's already in. How's everybody doing? Okay. What's up, Uptown? Pappy. What's up, Sheila? All right, so I gave enough people time. Hopefully, some other people that said they wanted to try to jump in. But I'm gonna really start to get into this right now. And I know a lot of people probably knows what's going on around the world. There's probably a lot of stuff you don't know. There's a lot of stuff they're not going to tell you, and there's a lot of things that's going on that the politicians aren't giving you. I don't want to get too deep into politics because this is a little bit more thing, but I just got to lay the background to why I think it's so essential that we have our Second Amendment and we keep it the way it is and what happened. And I'm gonna give you a little backstory of how I ended up where I'm at right now before I get a little bit further into it. But years ago, my oldest son, he came by, I think it was around my birthday time, and he wanted to take me to the gun range. And we went there, whatever. We had a good time. He kind of played me a little bit, gonna talk about something. Oh, I'm just gonna get a 38 for you, so I don't want you to hurt yourself. Humor. But that was the first time I ever went to a gun range, and that was a long time ago. Didn't really bite into it, but it was just like, okay, I had a good time, we had a good time, whatever case may be. Later on down the road, when stuff started going a little bit weird, I went out and I grabbed me a gun. And really not too familiar with using them, but I just said, you know what, I need to have something. So then my son, I called him up and was like, guess what? And he was like, what? I said, I got me a 9mm. And he was surprised. He was like, what? You? Not you, because everybody that knows me know that I'm not gonna say I had a problem with guns. It just wasn't a big deal to me, one way or the other. But after a while, I started to realize that, you know what? You can't defend, as much as you may think you can fight, people don't play fair like that. They're not thinking that way. And then that's just me thinking on my own. And then I started to really deep into, once I got the gun and started kind of getting to know that, it really started making me dig deeper into, why do we have guns? Like, why? What brought us to the point where we started we felt like we needed the guns? And I started looking back at what the Second Amendment was, why the Founding Fathers wrote it. And I realized that guns had nothing to do with what I thought it was. I thought, we always equate guns to the streets, crime, and stuff like that. And it has zero to do with that. Nothing. It has nothing to do with that. What it really was is, it was an instrument to use to fight against government tyranny. That's basically it in a nutshell. If our government was to ever become tyrannical, which they have already shown in this possibility even in our lifetime, like when we saw with COVID and stuff like that, government trying to tell you what to do. Our job as citizens is to keep in bear arms, to form a militia and basically tell government we ain't having it. But if you don't have a weapon, or you don't have any type of weapon, you're subject to whatever they tell you to do. And I think the Founding Fathers had foresight. But then I look back and realize that was what happened back then, and they said they didn't want it to happen no more. So that's, in a nutshell, why we need the Second Amendment. But then it goes a little further than that, and this is the more beneficial of it is that, people are crooked. You got all the crime and everything happening all around the world, especially in cities. You see all the crime going on. And all you see on the television is someone getting robbed, getting carjacked and stuff like that. And if you don't have some type of weapon, you are subject to whatever happens to you. I tell people all the time, guns save more lives by far than they ever take lives. Because usually if you wasn't the threat of a gun, and if someone comes to do something to you and you actually have a gun, a lot of times you don't even have to use it. It's just the threat of the gun stops the threat of the person that's coming after you. Now, if they have a gun, it might turn into something else, but at least, especially if you're a female and you out at night, whatever case may be, at least you have something to say, if I have a chance to pull my weapon, hopefully it will stop the threat, especially if it's a female up against a male. Or any situation. But, so when you hear politicians trying to say, for hunting and all that, none of that is in our Constitution. Our Constitution was written in a way so that citizens have a way to defend themselves against a tyrannical government that is trying to control your life. That is the main reason why we have it. The other stuff is just a byproduct benefit of being able to keep and bear arms. But what I always tell people is this, is that now that I've dug deeper into it, and now I have a different perspective about it. You should have a form of weapon. You should have a gun. You should be efficient in it. You should know how to use it. You should know how to clean it. Having a gun is one thing, and I go to the gun range here and there, but you should also know how to take it apart. You should also know how to clean it. Now, the last time I went to the gun range a little while back, me and my friends went on my birthday, and now my friend was there, and he was shooting his stuff, and his stuff kept jamming up. Like, he was like, man, I went over there and jammed it up, and I said, basically, you got to clean your stuff. I said, before we came to the range, I took everything I had, cleaned everything up, and then we went to the range. Everything ran smoothly. Nothing jammed up. Nothing stopped working. Everything, I cleaned it up, oiled it down, and it ran smoothly. And we went through a lot of rounds, but we had no problems. But he did. And then once I told him that, I said, you got to take your stuff apart. You got to clean it. You got to make it run efficiently. That way, when you out here, it ain't jamming up. And metal against metal is a problem. And he was like, okay, cool. And it was something that he said, I didn't think about that before I came here. He said, but now I learned something. And that's the thing about firearms. You really need to educate yourself on why we have them, and the purpose behind having them. Once I got my first one, then I got another one, and so forth. I love it. I enjoy it. I enjoy going around. This is the one thing that my son introduced me to, and I'm glad he did. And he probably like, yeah, my dad just went too far. And now, he's starting. When I was young boy, me and my friends, they used to call me Ronbo. Because when we go in woods, I used to just do crazy stuff in the woods and stuff like that. So I'm kind of owning the name now because now I got guns and stuff like that. But when you go to the range and you learn how to shoot, properly how to shoot. And I learned a lot over the time of me actually having firearms. When I first got them, I really didn't know a whole lot, but I just kept watching videos and watching what other people was doing. And then eventually I learned how to take them apart. Eventually I learned how to clean them all. And then eventually I learned how to sight my gun in. Now, sighting your rifles in is extremely important. And the reason why it's important is if you got a scope on your rifle and you think that rifle is shooting straight, you're not right. It's not going to shoot straight. So I had to go and actually sight all my rifles in to make sure that they're shooting as straight as possible. So now once I got them sighted in based on the scope and where the bullet is actually traveling to, now everything is basically it's up to me and my ability to shoot beyond that. Now the gun is doing what it's supposed to do. The rest of that is up to me. And once I started getting into it, I actually became a lot better shooter. Like I'm extremely better shooter now than I was when I first got into this. Even with my handguns. Now I'm a rifle fanatic. I like my rifles. I got my AR-15. I got my 458 SOCOM, and I love my rifles. I'm not a big handgun person, but of course, if you self-defense and you out and you carrying a concealed weapon, the handgun is the best thing for it. Oh, it was a 380, huh? Oh, okay, cool. Wasn't it a snub nose? That was my son. He jumped on the live, and I appreciate him being here. I think it was a 380. It was a chrome. I think it was a revolver. He said it was a 380, but it was a revolver 380, I guess. But that was my first time, and now I'm here. And so when people say about guns, what you see on the street is not what guns are about. What you see people doing and the reckless stuff that they do out in the street, that's not what this is about. This is about you being able to protect yourself, not just from guns out in the street. I mean, not just from the government, but also criminals out on the street. And you hear that some of these politicians say, oh, you don't need 5 rounds. You don't need 10 rounds in your gun. You don't need 20 and 30 rounds. What do you need all that for? Oh, you need it. You definitely need it. You need more rounds than that. And I'm explaining to you why you need more rounds than that. If you're out, let's say you're at a gas station, and 3 guys come up to rob you, and even if they had a revolver that's a 6-shooter, it's 3 of them. Now, most revolvers have about 5 or 6 rounds that they hold. All right. So now they're at 15 rounds, 16 rounds, whatever the math is on that. What are you going to do if you only got an 8 shot? You out of the fight at that point. But if you got an AR-15 and you holding 30 rounds in your gun and 5 guys come up, I'm not saying you're going to survive that, but I'd rather have 30 rounds to defend myself than a revolver that only have 5 rounds. And I'm fighting up against 2, 3, 4, 5 people trying to do something to me. So that's why when you hear the government say, oh, you don't, or these politicians say, oh, you don't need all of those rounds. Yes, you do. You need more. You need as much as you can carry. Why? Because if something happened and it's more than one person, you see some people getting carjacked. You might see 2 and 3 guys, or whoever they are, they all holding rifles. Their rifles might even have 30 rounds. You already outgunned. Now, but if you have your gun sighted in with your scope, that means you're going to be a better shooter across the board. If you know how to use it efficiently, that means you have an edge on them. And if you know about guns and you know a lot of detail about guns, you can kind of tell when you see the people shooting at you, whether they really know how to shoot or they just randomly think they know how to use guns. And if you wait it out long enough, if you can survive it long enough, it might not take you that much when it comes down to it. But if you're a good shooter and you got yourself sighted in, whatever you shoot at, you're more likely going to hit it. That's why when you see police officers shooting, rarely do they hit anything. They rarely ever hit anything other than what they're shooting at. Why? Because if they have rifles, their rifles are sighted in. And sighting in your rifle makes you not make. You might look at the scope and think the bullet is going straight, and that's not what's happening. The bullet might be going somewhere else. That's why you got to sight that scope in to match where the bullet is going, so that when you shoot at something, it actually goes where you're looking through the scope at. When you aim in the scope, the bullet's going to go there because you sighted your scope in with where your gun is shooting at, and you need to do that. If you got rifles, you need to sight your rifles in. Even if you got handguns, it's a little different, but if you got a rifle, you need to sight them in. And what's up, Mike? If you don't do that, you're going to accidentally shoot somebody. If something happened and you out there shooting, you're not shooting where you think you're shooting at. And you can accidentally hurt somebody or shoot somebody that has nothing to do with that. So you definitely want to be efficient with the gun. The other thing is, if some situation like that arises, look at your surroundings. Because bullets don't just stop when they hit something. They go through stuff. So before you respond, it's best to look for around your surroundings if you got time to make sure that you won't possibly hit nobody. That's why going to the range and being efficient and using these guns is so essential. Beyond just the government tyranny. So when you look at guns, they protect life. Yeah, people do use them for the wrong things a lot of time, but that's far little than what they actually protect. That's why our police officers have guns. That's why our military had guns. That's why a lot of citizens, most people don't know that guns there are over 100 guns to every one citizen in the United States. And I know most people don't even realize that the citizens of America, there's over 100 guns to every one person. And the reason why we have that situation is because most people that are in the gun family, they know that they need to have access to the best weapons possible, just in case the government act a fool. Which, if you think about at that COVID moment, that was a sign that the government, that was overreach from the government. Regardless of how people feel about it, the government wasn't supposed to do that. But because they knew the people had no defense, most people didn't have a defense, they did it. But what most people don't know, the only people really dealt with that is in the cities. Why? Because most of the cities have tough gun laws. And them tough gun laws make people not really have guns and stuff. So they didn't have no way of defending themselves. When you go outside the city and you go into other places, they wasn't doing all that. They said, we ain't doing that. We don't care what you say. We're not doing that. But the ones that they have control over is the ones that didn't have no way of defending themselves. And that's why they had to follow suit. Don't ever trust the government, to be honest with you. And that's just the truth. And I'm trying not to stay too much into politics, but I'm just saying that because this is the reason why those founding fathers wrote that Second Amendment, and the way they wrote it is to make sure they didn't say guns, they said keep and bear arms. Why? Because they knew that in time things will progress. You know, guns would get better, knives would get better, swords would get better. So they didn't make it specific. They made it broad so that it's any type of weapon, not just guns. Guns is just one of them. So you was able to keep and bear arms. But, you know, the government can use their weapons against it. Unfortunately, I heard Joe Biden, technically, the way he said it, was a threat to American citizens. He said, oh, if you want to take on the government, you would need F-15s. First of all, why would you even say something like that if you don't have bad intentions toward the citizens of America? You're not supposed to even say something like that. I don't understand why he still had his job. The military should say, oh, no, you don't threaten American citizens. We don't do that. And he should have been removed, but that's a whole nother subject in itself. But there are different types of guns. There's revolvers, there's rifles, there's shotguns. Some people like shotguns and they say they're best for home defense. I think in most cases they might be right, but it's hard for me to ride with that so much because shotguns, hold on. See how long this is? That's long. So if you in a house like we live in, most of us live in the city, and we got small rooms, you got to try to swing that thing around to get to something. You might not have time for that. So to me, if you live in city parks and stuff like that, I think handguns is probably your best home defense when somebody comes in your house, because you can maneuver around with that better. I'm not, everybody has their opinion on this. That's just my personal opinion. But, I'd rather have pull out the shotgun and take the AR and use that because they got more stopping power than a handgun does. So whatever you hit with that shotgun or whatever you hit with that 5.56 or the 458, they're not going to do a whole lot of moving after that. But it is one way or the other. Some people say, no, I like shotguns, they're better. You know what I mean? We don't, that's subject to opinion. But that's just my personal opinion. I think a handgun, oh, okay. I think a handgun is by far better for people that live in city and you got row homes and stuff like that. I think they probably, now if you got a chance to get the shotgun or the rifle and you can get to the target, I mean, for a stopping power, I think they're a whole lot better. There's a big difference in the impact that they do than a handgun would. But that's subject to opinion. Like I said, that's subject to opinion. But, you know, for those that are on this live, and if you don't understand what the Second Amendment is, I think you really need to dig into the United States Constitution because it is written in a way that is more beneficial to the everyday citizen. Hold on. Mike, put that up again. I want to see what you said. It went away, but if you could say, I want to see exactly what you said. But like I said, just, you know, you should look at our United States Constitution and understand that the way that it was written is to protect it. You can't say free speech, and if someone tries to control your speech, that's what the gun is for. Is to make sure that no one tries to control your life. That's what it's for. Is to make sure that the government don't try to make you do what they want you to do and start to infiltrate on your life. There's a whole lot of stories where other countries gave up their guns. And then what happened? That's how Hitler took over Germany. They gave up their guns. And then they was under subject to that. And I'm not going to get deep into the story, but you look into it, you don't want to fall for that. So when you hear politicians talk about, oh, you don't need this gun type of gun, and you don't need that type of gun, and you don't need this. Yeah, you do. You need the best guns that you could possibly get. Don't ever trust this government to be honest with you, because they're not. They want to control your life. They are so thirsty for power, it's ridiculous. So don't ever believe that, oh, no, they're not going to. Oh, okay. You know what, Mike? You're right. I think the combination of all of it, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. I think the combination of having a shotgun, a handgun, and a rifle, you're absolutely right. If you got that combination and you're home, that's even better. That's even better because you never know what the situation might arise. And so I think, you know, he made a point you should have the combination. He's absolutely right. Have a rifle, have a shotgun, have handguns. I say that because I have them. So he's absolutely right. The last thing I bought was actually a 12 gauge shotgun, and I wasn't really thinking about it at the time. I was just looking into the rifles because that's what I gravitated to mostly. But he's absolutely right. So if you could, guns are expensive. Ammo is expensive. All of it is expensive. So it ain't, you know, to sit there and say this, when you get into the game of, you know, into the world of firearms and stuff like that, it's expensive. It can be very costly, but you got to look at your life. How much is your life worth? How much the protection of your family is worth? How much the protection of your children is worth? So just like, you know, we got car seats in cars for children, just like we got seatbelts in cars for children and seatbelts in cars for adults to make sure no one to try to protect life, guns serve that purpose. They serve the same purpose. You know, so when you have a firearm in your life, in your house, and you got family and stuff that you care about, along with yourself, you never know what somebody's thinking about. You never know who's watching you, watching where you go, watching your movements, you going in and out of places. Rarely will you ever see what a bad person have intentions of. But if someone does happen to be watching you and they have those type of intentions and you have nothing to defend yourself, you need to think about that. You really need to do. I value this highly now, by far more than what I used to. So this is not just, oh, I've got guns just to say I have guns. It's not even about that. It's about my livelihood, being able to protect myself, family, whatever. Because you never know what's going to happen. And nowadays, we having all of these illegal migrants that came over here. And I say this to tell people, 80% of them are men. They're not refugees coming from somewhere trying to get away from something bad happening somewhere else. These are military-age fighting men. And I've seen videos where they're from over 150 different countries infiltrating into America. You don't know what their intentions are. We already got enough dealing with the people that are already here. Now you got these people coming over here. You need to have something to protect yourself and your family. Make sure you have not just a gun. Make sure you have plenty of ammo if you can. If you don't have a lot, buy a little. Start small. And work your way up there. And then go to the range. Learn how to shoot. If you don't know how, get with somebody. Learn how to shoot. Learn how to be efficient with the gun. Learn all that you can learn so you just don't make stupid mistakes, because in the moment, it's not, you ran out of time to figure it out. But if you've been trained and you know how to use it, you prepared for it. And the other thing is actually a very fun hobby. Beyond that, it's actually very fun. It's a stress reliever for some people. And you can actually enjoy yourself going out to the range, firing and stuff, shooting off, letting off ammo. It's actually fun. It's a whole lot of fun too. And that's another byproduct of just having firearms. And I mean, I could get into a lot of stuff, but I'm going to probably hold it right here and just, thank everybody that got on. I appreciate y'all. I really do. And, I wasn't here a long time ago, but I'm here now. And, I'm probably going to do some more videos down the road. Maybe, get into some of the other stuff that I have and stuff like that. And what else, other things that I've learned about taking them apart and stuff like that. I'll get into another video, but for the most part, this one was just about why we need to have firearms, why our Second Amendment is written the way it's written. And you really need to consider this. And, when you go to, and when you're in your cities and wherever you live at, you really need to dive deep into this, because the way that they wrote I live in Philadelphia, they wrote the laws messed up. They just messed up. And I'm not going to get too far in this, but I'm going to eventually get off. But I just want to say this real quick. In Philadelphia, if you look at how they have their gun laws, it's more protecting towards the criminal than it is the citizens. And that's messed up. It's messed up. That's why I say have your firearm, make sure you're efficient in it, and make sure that you have something to protect your family, but those that you care about and that you love and want them to be okay. And I'm going to go ahead and, hopefully I'm going to dig into some other stuff later on, but I hope somebody got something out of this that's helping them and maybe they was on the fence of purchasing a gun, buying a gun, why should I have it, whatever the case may be. And hopefully you got something out of it. And everyone have a blessed day. If you don't have Christ in your heart, get them there. Believe me, it'll help you. Have a wonderful day. Talk to y'all later. Thank y'all.